Canada just got thrashed by the Netherlands in a friendly 4-0. And after each Canada match, I do my 5 takeaways. And I'm going to do that, but it's going to be a little different because these two halves were drastically different. I'm going to have 5 takeaways from the positive first half and 5 takeaways from the horrible second. So hopefully you guys are excited, and if you are, as always, be sure to drop a like, drop a sub, and let's get into the episode now. Now let's begin with the first half, and it was very positive. Going into halftime, Jesse Marsch and the entire Canadian national team had been going in there and thinking, wow, we just competed with one of the biggest footballing nations out there. We did a lot of the good things that Jesse Marsch was planning on bringing to this national team. I thought Bombito and Cornelius looked very comfortable together. I said Bombito was going to be a big part of this national team going forward, and I expected Cornelius to be alongside him. You also had Davies in there. This was a back four that has never played together, period. Johnston, Bombito, Cornelius, Davies, they looked well organized. They looked structured. Cornelius had basically the pace on both sides of him with Bombito and Davies, and it really allowed him to play his game. They just looked comfortable, and Cornelius also had a fantastic goal line clearance. I thought Dane St. Clair was incredible, made a big case to be the number one in that first half, and honestly throughout the game, but we'll get to that. And Davies at left back worked. I mean, he's wearing the armband. He was asked to simplify things. I thought he played really well. I thought this was going to be a big opportunity for Davies and Jesse Marsch to have a conversation of, are you ready to play left back for Canada? Because what I just saw against the Netherlands in that first half is making me think that this is maybe where you belong. Kone looked really comfortable as well. The double pivot, I had some question marks. Kone, I would say, is more of a 10 than he is a 6. His main position is an 8, but he definitely played very deep alongside Eustachio. Both players, depending on what side of the ball we're on, knew when to kind of step up and press and then get back into position. They played basically as 2 6s, and I just haven't quite been convinced that that's exactly where Kone should be, although I thought none of the goals were the double pivot's fault. We had question marks if it should be a 3-man midfield, 2-man midfield, but I'm not looking at this double pivot and saying that is exactly why this national team just lost 4-0. I thought both were relatively strong throughout the entirety of the match, and in that first half, I thought Kone looked very comfortable, and honestly, it was so far so good. Jesse Marsch would look at this team and be very happy. He's implemented his philosophy, and I think that he, considering he's only had this job for not very long, and this is a lot of new, especially that back line, new players playing together in this way, it is nothing but smiles for Jesse Marsch. Now let's talk about the second half, and that's where there's going to be probably even more takeaways than just the 5, because things completely fell apart. And the number one question mark I have, and I'm curious to see what Jesse has to say if he's asked this question, is when we hear about Jesse's philosophy and the way he wants to play, high tempo, high energy, pressing is a big part of that. Yes, he's strategic about when he wants his players to press, and there's triggers for that. But for the most part, he's going to ask a lot out of this team. And the reason that the Canadian national team looked like it would be a great fit for him is because we have energetic and athletic players that could really suit his style. But can they maintain it? And that's a question mark I have, is because these two halves didn't look like it came from the same match. So did the Canadian national team run out of energy? Did they run out of the ability to press? Because I barely even noticed that in the second half, and they were absolutely had nothing on the Netherlands, and they just basically sat there and took it, and the Netherlands absolutely gave it to them. It's unfortunate for the positive things that came out of that first half, but maybe that's a learning lesson for Jesse Marsch that this team can't maintain that tempo throughout the match. At least he's got to adjust it going forward, and France is going to be a really good opportunity to do so. The other big thing for me is the fact that Dane St. Clair, like I mentioned, did have a strong match, and maybe I jinxed him a little bit throughout the watch-along that, he's the guy. It was a big statement to start Dane St. Clair over Crépeau, and I thought he had a great match. It could have been maybe even 6-7-0. It really could have been. He made some fantastic saves, but there was, I'd say, 2 of the goals. One of the goals for sure is his. The second one, I guess it was the fourth goal, is probably on him too. Virgil's header, he got a fingertip to it, so I would assume that's where the blame goes. So really, 2 of the 4 goals, you could look at Dane St. Clair and blame it on him, although he made some fantastic saves. It's difficult. I always thought Crépeau was going to be the starter because I think they're about even in terms of quality. Crépeau is an excellent shot stopper and better with the ball at his feet. So I don't know what Jesse Marsch is going to do. This was an opportunity for Dane St. Clair. I would have said that first half could have been enough to maybe honestly push for that job and make sure that Jesse Marsch knows he's making the right decision. I'd say after those 2 mistakes he made, it's a little bit up in the air, but I do want to say that Dane, I do still believe, had a strong match. The other big issue for me was man-to-man marking. It was an issue for Canada. I was talking with Alex. He's a big fan of zonal marking and the way that man-to-man was working in this game. It just seemed that they got lost. Cornelius is a little bit at blame for that. You could throw Davies in there as well. And of course, Alistair Johnson, who had a really tough match. It's a learning experience for Jesse Marsh, but he needs to address some things. The right-hand side was a disaster. It really was. Tajon Buchanan was not in the game at all, and Alistair Johnston was having a really tough time. It was very interesting because Van de Ven is a center back, but I mean, he's extremely fast and tough. And that speed and that physicality going up, Alistair Johnston just absolutely couldn't deal with it. And that kind of leads into the last issue I had here is, yes, the right-hand side was struggling with two players that we depend on. Alistair Johnston, Tajon Buchanan. The substitutions I was not crazy about. I don't mind Schaffelberg coming on for Liam Miller. I don't know if that was a necessary change. I think Liam offered a little bit more than Tajon did in that first half, but I don't mind it. It makes sense. It's a like-for-like switch. But I noticed the quality of Zator coming on along with Brim. I thought Brim was positive. I can't really lump him in there. I just was surprised to see Brim come on that early. I thought Brim created a few chances. I thought he was, he brought a little something to the game. I don't have any issues with that. I was just personally a little surprised that he came on when he did. But it was Zator, and Zator almost, I would say, played worse than Johnson did. They both really struggled. He had a couple big turnovers that really led to goals, and it was tough for Dom. A CPL guy, you want to see him get these opportunities and really take them. But it showed where we're missing some players. Richie Larea clearly isn't fit. I think if he was, that would have been a natural replacement for Johnson, who was struggling. I thought maybe he would get 15, 20 minutes, but I guess Richie wasn't ready for that. Atakubi, we desperately missed, and that's the last big question mark I have. Davies got caught out a few times. He really does trust himself in his pace, and we saw that with the Frimpong goal. When Cornelius stepped up, Davies held his position. He was aware, even though he wasn't looking, he was aware where Frimpong was. Then he tracked back and he made the recovery, he made the block. It's just unfortunate it landed right back for him, and he just swung his boot at it and scored the goal. I don't really put that on Davies. I think he trusted his speed and he was correct. It's just a little bit unfortunate there. But the big thing is, what are you going to do with Davies? It seemed like Jesse Marsh wanted to play him higher up the pitch. Maybe because of the options at left back, decided maybe it's best to put Davies there. But what is going to be Davies' role going forward? Because Atakubi, I think, could fit this system really well, slide into left back, which allows Davies to go up. We have the France match coming up. Are we going to see Kyle Heber, who I had big question marks about because he does fit this system in the way that he plays in that Red Bull way at St. Louis week in, week out? Are we going to see Kamal Miller now? With the way we got exposed against the Netherlands, I can't imagine that France is going to be any easier. Are we going to see Kamal Miller, who's got pace, is a center back, but he can play left back, allow Davies to go up? I have some big question marks around what Jesse Marsh is going to do. But I would say my biggest one is about the tempo, the energy, and the way that this team presses throughout the match. How is he going to know when these players can and can't press? When is he going to be able to figure out exactly how to maintain it through a match? Because you can't have an extremely impressive first half like that and do almost everything right, and then the tank's empty in the second half, you get walked over. There has to be something there. I'm curious to see if Jesse's going to talk about it in the media, or of course he's going to address it just by making tactical changes and in the approach to the game, because that second half was something. It was a humbling experience for Canada fans, but I would take that. I would take a 4-0 loss against the Netherlands before a 5-0 win against Bermuda. This is a learning experience. Jesse can take things from this. No one should be going into this match seeing that we lost 4-0 and then being like, Jesse doesn't know what he's doing. The first 3 matches of his managerial career with Canada is going to be the Netherlands, France, and Argentina. It's always going to be a tough task. It's just now taking what you've learned, implementing it, and hopefully improving on it in the next game until it gets to Peru and Chile, those 2 important matches, if we're going to look to get out of the group in Copa America. So those are some of my thoughts. I had a lot of takeaways in this one. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this. Let me know down in the comments section what you thought of the match, if you agree with some of my takes, what you would change for the France match. And as always, if you enjoyed this, be sure to drop a like, drop a sub. We'll see you soon. Cheers, friends.